Jeannie, thank you for doing this with us. I have to admit, when we first started to conceptualize this program a couple of months ago, you were our archetype.
Oh my gosh.
We actually, I'm not even joking, we were at my house and we were doing our team retreat, and we actually archetyped this around you,
Oh my gosh.
and our partnership and our chemistry. And I feel like we have so much to talk about. So, very excited to be here with you.
Me too. Thank you so much. That really means a lot coming from you because I admire you and your work and the way that you do it. So I'm excited for this conversation.
I like to start with a little bit of an origin story. So, would love to start at the beginning. What brought you to the space? How did you start to think about Beauty Heroes? How did it all come to be?
Yeah, well, you just came back from Hawaii, which is where I grew up. And it's really where I think there's this, sort of deep connection to nature. Grew up always in the ocean every day and just really outside all the time. And so I think that has just informed the way that I look at the planet and everything in it. And I did have a career as a spa director. I grew up in Hawaii, so I was drawn to the hospitality industry. Mm-hmm. And then the spa industry is what drew me in because it was really wellness focused. Getting into that, I was genuinely interested in people's health and well-being. In the late 90s, there was an article that ingredients in some beauty and personal care products might be harmful to people's health. Mm-hmm. And that was a moment for me that I thought, well, we're putting all these products on people in our spa. This is the 90s, so we're doing thalassotherapy and scrubs and wraps and massages and facials and hydrotherapy and all of it. And I thought, well, we want to make sure we don't put any of those ingredients on people and our therapists. And that really kicked off a career-long journey to ask questions. What is in this product? What are you formulating with? And what I discovered is that most brands didn't know what was in their products.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that's very true still today. They don't really know what's there. And what happened was I discovered my first independent brand that was really founder-made, founder-led, founder everything, where she knew everything that was in her products. She knew every answer to every question. She really had an intention behind every product that she created. And that really expanded my view of what working with a brand and bringing it into my spa could mean. And I felt so connected to that brand that I started collecting these brands that were like that. I said, oh, if there's one, there's maybe more. Mm-hmm. And I started working with wonderful brands, and that inspired me to want to connect people to other brands. So that's what really Beauty Heroes is today. Everything we do ties back to the mission of connecting people to truly healthy brands that are better for people, lighter on the planet, and who know what's in their products and are really transparent about that. That's how it all happened. And everything else kind of grew from there.
We're sitting in Jeannie's beautiful Beauty Heroes studio in Nevada. You can feel the physical space that you've curated is really special. I also know from knowing you that you have a personal story with your health journey, and developing a standard for clean or non-toxic way before the industry was even thinking about that. So I was wondering if you could share that with us.
It was honestly not really my health journey that inspired it. Mm-hmm. I think as women, we're always putting others before us. And for me, I just felt a real responsibility to my clients in the spa and my therapists. So that's really what my inspiration was. My personal story is just kind of funny in that I was trying to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. I was diagnosed with PCOS. They later diagnosed me with infertility. Mm-hmm. They told me there was an 8% chance that I would ever get pregnant naturally, and they were very, very not hopeful for me. PCOS is a hormone disorder. And so I was doing this work where I was looking at hormone disruptors in products, and I was using that terminology, hormone disruptor. And then personally, I was really struggling in a very long journey with infertility. And I had this aha moment that took me a very long time to make the connection that there's a hormone disorder and hormone disruptors. That was when I really looked at, okay, my life, and really looked at the hormone disruptors that were in my environment, from products to, everything that was kind of around me, because I was really desperate to get pregnant naturally. I didn't go through IVF, and ended up working with a great natural doctor, and ended up kind of like beating the odds. There's more to it. I had cystic acne. I had really bad cystic acne that after I had gotten pregnant, the hormones got into alignment. I just had such bad acne, you wouldn't really believe it. Now, looking at my skin,
looks amazing.
Yeah, and I think so. It's hard to even say, because I feel like people won't believe me, but it looked so bad. But what was worse was how painful it was under my skin. I ended up having this very perfect pregnancy. My acne really disappeared, and so I really understand the power of having a hormone disorder and then finding balance.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have also a personal journey. I don't know if I've shared this with you, with PCOS. So got also cystic acne, and just, it's such a self-confidence disruptor, as well. Especially younger and into adulthood. So I've been in and out of endocrinologist, dermatologist office, in and out of PCOS diagnoses for maybe 15 years. And they put me on the bill when I was 16.
Yeah.
And then I was just, on the thing. And when I was 30, I went to an Ayurvedic doctor. And she was like, you need to get off of this thing. It's, your body is just not in balance. And I think something interesting also happens when you get off of birth control. My acne just exploded. I had to take 2 rounds of really strong antibiotics just to, calm it down. It was also during COVID, so we were all wearing masks, and it's a nightmare.
I've really been there.
Ooh, yeah, and it's just it's debilitating. It really my self-confidence really took a hit. And then I found balance again, and it was food. It was being really intentional about what I was putting in my body that really helped. And then it's so interesting too, because your body it has so much wisdom, and it snaps back, you know? So I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to really be in tune and to as you described, know what your body needs.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they start kind of transitioning to products that we carry at Beauty Hero, they say, oh my gosh, my skin is so much better. And they say, what is in the products? And there's a lot of really good ingredients in these products, but it's really what's not in them that is making that dramatic difference.
On my way here, very serendipitously, I read this beautiful piece by a friend who was talking about what the word clean means, particularly in beauty. Would love, and you're an industry disruptor, an industry leader. You were doing clean before I think anyone was. So would love to hear your perspective on what clean beauty means to you. And also, how did it feel to be ahead of the curve?
Yeah, there's a few, there's some layers to that. But what I will say is that we generally don't use the word clean. We use it a bit. It's a little bit in our SEO, honestly, because that is the term that the industry has latched onto. It's not the words that we use internally at Beauty Heroes and in our mission and in our content. And if you listen to me talk, I'll talk about truly healthy beauty. I got into the spa industry and doing what we're doing because I really wanted to, have a healthy company, not only in the products and the ingredients, but the way that we operate, the way that we talk to clients, the way that the integrity of the company. I wanted it to be holistically healthy. So from the very, very beginning, when I started Beauty Heroes in 2014, green beauty was kind of the passion. It was like green beauty, botanical beauty. And there's this amazing community of green beauty founders that were kind of the OG that were really leading the way. And then there kind of came this terminology of clean beauty. It sort of evolved 2 or 3 years after I started Beauty Heroes. And it never really sat perfectly with me. For me, it's always been about truly healthy beauty. And when I say truly healthy, is I just feel like there's so much in the health and wellness space that isn't necessarily like all that. And so I think for me, that just little bit of emphasis on it, like truly healthy is like what I did my deep dive on, what I feel like really has integrity. The Beauty Hero standard is really different. I started out the company really looking at, are these ingredients safe for people? And that was really all. I didn't have anything, that's all I looked at, and, looked at hormone disruptors and neurotoxins and cancer causing ingredients. Then this big thing happened where a cosmetic chemist explained to me that there are ingredients that aren't necessarily harmful to human health, but they don't biodegrade in the environment. And so when you wash them off, or you work with them, or you jump in the ocean with them, they persist in the environment. And I didn't know that. That was a big turning point for me. And once I knew that, I started looking at ingredients through that lens. Do these ingredients biodegrade? Are they safe to put back into the environment? We're talking about all the plastic that's floating in the ocean, but there's just layers of silicones and microplastics and nanoplastics that come from the cosmetic industry that persist in the environment. And yeah, that's not great for our ecosystems, but ultimately our ecosystems feed us, right? And especially with rootless and the seaweed that's, in the ocean, the seaweed's cleaning the ocean for us. And that's what I love so much about rootless, is that you've got this ingredient that is feeding us, but it's feeding the planet. It's just so symbiotic, and it's so magical, and it's so special. One of the reasons I love rootless so much. But that is, when I think about that, you think about the seaweed growing in the ocean and all of the chemicals that are floating around it. And I didn't want to really contribute to that as well as we could. And so that is a lens that we take to our ingredient standard that people really, it's not really a mainstream conversation yet. It's coming a little bit, but we've got a long, long way to go.
Absolutely. So if you were to replace the word clean, what would you replace it with?
Healthy. Yeah.
I love it. Healthy beauty.
Yeah. Healthy beauty.
I love it.
Yeah. Cause I just feel like everything that you are putting in and on your body, it's possible. That's the thing, is like, I know that it's possible to have it all be like good for you. I've got a whole store and a whole like life full of it. It's not really about being perfection, right? Like when you talk about food, there's like the 80-20 rule, right? And so it's not really about kind of striving for something perfect. It's really about us all trying to be as well as we can be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I also think ultimately it is just easy. It's not, I think the systems around us have made it harder to access the truly unprocessed simplicity of nature. But even the way that the beauty industry was birthed in nature. It was birthed in indigenous wisdom. It was birthed in nature and from nature. And I think one of the reasons that seaweed is our muse and why we love it so much too is that it's just a simple thing. Like it makes us healthy. It makes the planet healthy. The more you grow of it, the better for everyone. So I personally feel very drawn to just this idea of simplicity. And I think that's why I feel so drawn to you and your mission and your work. Curious, just, going down the line of questioning around definitions. Who is beauty for in your estimation?
I'm going to say Beauty Heroes, the name of our company, is a bit of a misnomer. I think that, we definitely identify more as a wellness company than a beauty company. Beauty is a beautiful word. And I think one of the things that I think people might be surprised to learn about me personally is that I feel most beautiful. And I think others are most beautiful when they're not wearing any makeup. And when that, those photo shoots that they used to do where they'd have like celebrities with no makeup on, those were my favorite.
Oh, I love that.
Because that's where I felt like these women were like the most beautiful.
Totally.
And that's really where I feel most beautiful. It doesn't mean that I don't love color. I clearly do. And I love to play. And I think makeup is a joyful expression and not something that, I feel very like we shouldn't, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and it used to be in our dress code for our hotels that we had to wear earrings of a certain way and pantyhose and makeup a certain way. That's kind of gone away now, which is good. But the sort of expectation that women wear makeup to look presentable or a certain way, those standards still remain, even though, the constructs are being sort of torn down slowly. But beauty is, I think, very personal. And I don't think anybody should be defining it for anybody. And it should, I think beauty in the way that we have it here at Beauty Heroes should be fun. If you're not having fun with it, then you're kind of doing it wrong.
You've been building Beauty Heroes now for 11 years. Congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
You were doing healthy beauty before anyone else was. How does it feel? What has it been like to, for over a decade, build a company, stick to your values in an industry that maybe doesn't value exactly what?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges. I think first I like to say that, a lot of people have been creating healthy brands and products and talking about this long before I came on the scene. I think, we brought our perspective and our voice in 2014, and it's been in many ways a very fun journey. It's been very rewarding. I will say that's one of the things that I wanted with Beauty Heroes. I wanted a company that was that I got a big psychic paycheck from. What I will say is, like, holding true to the standard of not allowing these ingredients has been challenging because it prevents us from working with a lot of trending, growing. It slows growth, right? And so that, and the beauty industry just like pounds for growth. Everything pounds for growth, right? Like everything is just like, how can we grow, scale. How do I take the next step that's not holding the company back, and also scaling, just sustainably. And I don't think that I've done it perfectly. I think I've made a ton of mistakes. I will say it's really hard to stay true to your values. And everybody that comes in that wants to talk doesn't understand why you can't compromise to make a good thing. But at the end of the day, that psychic paycheck's pretty big. I do think that, there's one thing that you can't buy with any money, which is people's trust. At the end of the day, that's really important. And I think that's where, I focus on the true value of our companies in that trust.
I've been thinking about the word value for a really long time. Valuation.
Yes.
What is your value? What is your company valued at? What are the values that you're building with? What is the value you're trying to create? For whom is that value? And I'm really striving, and which is why I'm so inspired by you and your work. There's so much more value you can create that I don't think we can put into words yet. So I love this idea of the psychic paycheck, because you're right. I think earning somebody's trust is one of the most beautiful ways to be connected with your people, with your community. And we're also at an interesting inflection point because there is so little trust.
Yeah, and I think in terms of what you were talking about today and hope, I think about this a lot. I think I have to have hope and faith that is going to have value in the end. You can just create another brand, create another product, exit and do it again. And that's fine. That's a fine path to do. It's just not the path we're on.
Yeah. You were saying, you were describing your vetting process, and you say yes to a lot of brands and you say no to a lot of brands and ingredients. Could you walk us through what vetting looks like for you?
Yeah, so there's first of all, there's a story behind each brand that we have at Beauty Heroes. I feel like we've got a family of almost, I think it's just about 100 brands.
Oh, wow.
Kind of went down. It was like 108, and then it kind of went down, and now it's coming back up. Of the healthiest brands in the world, that's really what I feel like they are. These most of our brands have environmental and social impact built into their business models on one level or multiple levels. They really care about human health and environmental health. And I will say, that's really, we are really looking for those brands that just genuinely are like building something with care. When we look at a brand, first off, we have to look at the ingredients, because unfortunately there's brands that are like 99% there, and then if there's one ingredient that doesn't meet our standard, we can't work with them. And that's where holding that line gets really painful, because there's a brand that really does meet all of our values, and then they just formulated with one ingredient that we don't allow. And we can't launch that brand. So it definitely kind of starts with ingredients, and then we look at the whole package. How they're sourcing ingredients. Are they really caring about organic sourcing? It's not that everything needs to be organic, but how are they thinking about sourcing their ingredients? Sort of created this very common sense packaging standard. If you go to the Beauty Heroes website, it says our standard, and there's all these different layers to it. With packaging, it's very different than ingredients. Ingredients are black and white. Packaging, first of all, there's a trade-off with every type of packaging. So we're really looking at, sensibly packaging their products. Are they using a lot of unnecessary components that are very decorative but not really functional? We steer away from those. Are they really thinking about how they can incorporate post-consumer recycled materials into their supply chain? We don't have a specific level, because I think that if you set those levels, it's really setting everybody up for disappointment. Because what I've learned over time is that you can have the best goals. Like brands would have 100% PCR, and they would make all the right decisions. The problem is that in the supply chain for packaging, what you want isn't always available.
Yep.
And so you can't hold that really specific standard. But we vet for all of it. And then, like I said, we really look at, is this brand contributing to environmental impact or social impact in one way or another? I like to think of all of our brands as little Patagonias, brands that are making the world a better place and kind of have social and environmental impact built into their business models.
We've been talking about this whole
Yes.
time, actually. And I think one of the reasons that we're super excited about this program is because we really believe that businesses can change systems. How has that journey been, and what gives you hope for the future? What are you excited about? If you had a crystal ball, what would the future of beauty look like?
I will say this very humbly and down to earth. We have changed the industry just by having our standard. And I will tell you, it happened so much earlier than you would think that it did. But when I launched Beauty Heroes and I had this very specific standard, I had all these brands that really wanted to be a part of Beauty Heroes. And they would come and they would pitch us, and they were 99% there. And then they had an ingredient or two or three that didn't meet our standard. And what happened was that they went and they reformulated their brand to meet our standard.
That's amazing.
The first time that happened, I truly could not believe it. I almost believed it would never happen again. It happens all the time now, where brands will come to us, we'll tell them, you're so close, and then they'll go and they'll actually reformulate the product. I think that we have made change that was not my intention. I really didn't I would never think that was even possible. But I do think as people start to realize that the environment is a consequence. They will, they are seeing different ways of formulating products. There's a lot of innovation in seaweed. I think you probably know about this more than I do, but I think that's a very hopeful thing for me. I'm hoping that we kind of lean into that. You can really feel in the industry there's sort of like this resistance or sort of backlash to clean, and then there's also this leaning into it. And so that's okay. I'm definitely in the camp that's like leaning into it, and I just think that's a more hopeful way to go. And I think there's a lot of innovation. There's some really cool brands. I think there's a lot in solid personal care that is like lower packaging, and a lot of innovation in that. So there's, I think we're gonna end up okay, but I think we're still a bit of a long way, but we're pushing.
Slow and steady.
Yeah.
I'm so inspired by this idea of also assuming best intent, giving people the benefit of the doubt, and a part of it is also just education, so I think the fact that you have such a stringent, high quality, high standard of what is healthy and what is not, is also educating the industry and people who have good intentions to say, okay, maybe I didn't know about this, but now I can go back and reform it. And that's how you change systems. I think this just stories. We just need more stories at exactly the right leverage point. And I think you have such a powerful leverage point with what you've built at Beauty Heroes.
Well, what I think is so, one of the things that I think is so great, particularly about the store, is that people walk into this store and they're not even interested in like healthy beauty, clean beauty. They just think it's a cool store. And they see all these beautiful products and brands, and they start smelling them and touching them and feeling them, and then they buy them. What happens is they have an incredible result with those products, and they'll come back and tell us that story about and they say it all the time, what is in these products? And when you take out all of those sort of cheap petroleum, derived ingredients, silicones, acrylates, all of those ingredients that really just give your products a silky texture feel and give no nutrition to your skin or your body, then you're getting a totally different benefit from the products. And so I think there's this sort of, strange misconception that these healthier brands aren't as high performance, and it's really the inverse of that. It's fun to see it happen in real time, and then that just changes. And I think one of the things, like when people stop using synthetic fragrance, they actually start to feel more sensitive to it, and then they're naturally gravitating towards natural fragrance. It's just it's just natural, and it happens a lot organically without really having to judge anybody or push anybody or sell anybody or even explain it. It just is kind of like, oh, this feels so good. I haven't been exposed to it before.
I am curious. So building is hard, as we know, especially building with intention and intuition. What have been some moments or a moment where you felt like this is your path, that you're meant to be doing this work? And when did the psychic paycheck feel big for you?
I think it happens more often. Again, I'm really humbled by this, but this is really the compliment that I want the most. And when I heard it for the first time, I was like, oh, this is worth it, and people are getting it. So people will come into the store, and if I'm here, they'll kind of grab me, and they'll say, they'll pull me aside and they'll say, I just want to thank you for creating this company. And there's a lot of those moments that when I started the company, I never imagined somebody would even say that to me once. But when you hear that kind of regularly, it never gets old, first of all. And it does sort of fuel me to keep going. They say, thank you for creating this company. This company sort of gives me hope that there are good companies in the world, and I think that's what that's why I feel like you and I have had such a connection, is because Rootless has really given me that hope. Here's a product that really feels so good for me and does so well for me and does so well for the environment, and and then knowing that you're behind it and your team. And I was like, oh, there are good companies out there. We really want to grab onto that. We really want to hold on to that and find more of that.
Yeah, thank you. So to wrap up, what gives you hope for the future of beauty?
Yeah, so I think I will share a little story with you that's not really about beauty products or beauty heroes at all. But I was at a poetry retreat a couple months ago with David White, and he talked about this concept of trauma, and how trauma in our world, there's so much of it, and it can be a really bad thing, of course. But he also talked about there's this other concept of being traumatized by beauty. And, he puts together such a beautiful retreat that there are so many beautiful aspects, right? There's music and there's poetry, and it's in a beautiful setting. This one was here in Monterey, in Carmel, California. And he spoke about this. He's a really famous poet, if you don't know who he is. And he's my favorite poet, and he does these amazing retreats. And he kind of thinks about things in a way that I think is so important. And so this concept of being traumatized by beauty as a positive interaction really resonated with me, because I think so much about my childhood and being in Hawaii, even being in Northern California, even seeing a beautiful person, even having a beautiful dining experience, even a beautiful drive, and listening to music, and those moments of genuine beauty, they can traumatize us in a positive way. And I had never heard of that before. And I thought about how, cool of a concept, and this is really the first time that I'm speaking about it. I really want to write about this more or talk about this more, is that we can collectively be traumatized by beautiful moments in our life and use those to combat the difficult traumas in our life. And that weekend, I early on the Sunday morning, I went down to the beach, and as I was walking down to the beach, there was a man walking up, and he looked at me and he said, "I hope you enjoy." And I thought, what a weird thing to say. And he just had this beautiful smile on his face. And as I was walking down to the beach, there was this incredible rainbow on this empty beach. Like, it was just there for me. And I felt like I was traumatized by beauty, and I felt like that concept really came into life. And I think that from now on, I'm really looking at, like, how can we really, take beautiful moments and have them make a profoundly, like, traumatic in a positive way impact on our lives. And, not necessarily just lean into, like, beauty as, like, lip gloss or anything. Like, sure, that's super fun and fine. And, like, I love my skincare routine. And I think that, everything that I use on my skin and on my body makes me super happy. It's all of it together.
I feel very moved by that. I also think it's because I definitely had a bit of a reaction where I was like, oh, trauma is bad. But I think trauma is cell altering, right?
Yeah.
It actually, like, changes something in your body. And I cannot tell you, Jeannie, how many moments I had in Hawaii, which is why I share with you that it feels like home for me and my soul. How many moments I've had where I actually I'm just set at a cellular level, changed by by the present. You know, it was just sitting. I surfed. We saw so many rainbows. I was sitting on the beach. It's a beautiful sunset. Oh, I love that concept. Thank you so much. What a
And
hopeful.
David White explains it so much better than I could ever explain it. So I think I didn't really do it justice, but I think you don't need to understand it so much to understand it.
Absolutely. I also love the idea of ending this on the line, I hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Yeah,
This
thank
was
you.
so lovely.